You are live. Hello, everyone. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hi. Welcome back to my channel. Today we have Lindsay, and Lindsay is going to be sharing her POI story with us, in addition to her mental health challenges as well too. So I'm just gonna get in. I'm gonna get Lindsay to introduce herself, and then we just dive in. If you guys have any questions, leave it at the comment section. And once we're done, be able to answer any questions then. Okay, Lizzie, go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm 28 years old. I live in the U.S. if most of you aren't from the U.S. I'm in the U.S. in Tennessee. I've battled POI for over 10 years now. And so it's just been a struggle and learning experience through the years. And I do better each day and have a good support system.
That's
And
good.
so, and I'm back and going to nursing school. So I'm doing that right now. So.
That's really good. So, Lizzie, do you just want to go ahead and share your POI story as well as me? You say you've been battling POI for 10 years as well. So, if you just go ahead and tell us a little bit more.
So I was expecting to have, I'll try to be specific. My family, my mom and my grandma had their periods early. So I was expecting to have mine early. And while I never had it around when they had it about 8 or 9, and then I was 13 and I just sporadically had a period for about a day and a half, and then it just completely stopped. And we were just like, oh, maybe it's just your body just being, maybe it'll go back to normal. Well, it never went. It was about a year. And my mom's like, we're talking to your pediatrician. And so she brought it up to my pediatrician at the time. And I was referred to Vanderbilt. I went to a specialist at Vanderbilt for kids. And they took my blood, and at the time they never said POI. They just
Yeah.
said I have low estrogen levels and put me on birth control. So I was on birth control for a few years, off and on, just because of insurance changes and growing up. Like my birth control changes, I was off and on, and then I got to college. And well, about the end of college, I was still on birth control and I completely just stopped having periods. I was still having symptoms that I know now today as POI symptoms. So I had vaginal dryness, um, mood changes, like I never realized now, but when they looked, I had like my tissue wasn't good, and just I had all the symptoms and even on birth control. And so I went to my primary at the time, since I was an adult, sent me to an OBGYN, and they took more blood. I've had so much blood over the years. Um, and it was still low estrogen even on birth control. And
Mm.
so I got an ultrasound, and then she referred me to an endocrinologist at Vanderbilt. So by the time that I did the ultrasound, she was like, I'm going to confirm POI. So I have small, really small ovaries, a small uterus. Um, and so she put me on hormone replacement and then referred me to the endocrinologist. And that's where they were able to do, she was like, you do have POI. And that's where they were able to do genetic testing at Vanderbilt. And so they took my blood and did genetic testing, and I met with a genetic counselor. And my POI was due to, um, I have a chromosomal abnormality. So my 13th chromosome is like this. I'm missing about that much of it. And I was
Wow.
born with it. And so I've faced this since I was born and just didn't know it. And and my mom, I know that was a hard hit on my mom, just because she was like, she didn't get it from one of us, did she? And they were like, it was just something when my mom had me, I was just born with. I wasn't given it from anybody. I was just born with my chromosome missing. And by that, all that happened by the time I was 21, 22. And so I've just stayed on hormone replacement. I go to my yearly checks, And then my endocrinologist at Vanderbilt is still there if I ever need to meet her, but I'm able to stay with my OBGYN here in my town to keep up with my checks. They check my hormones because even on hormone replacement, they're worried about me getting too much. So I still get my hormones checked and everything's been pretty good. And I'm 28 now and about 5 years on hormone replacement. So
Wow. So you were actually diagnosed at what age were you diagnosed then? Because even though you had your period so young and it stopped, and then for years you were put on the pill, then
yeah.
nobody actually knew that it was no, you have not actually received a diagnosis at that age. So you were suffering from a lot of symptoms then, even
Yeah.
while you were on, yeah. So at what age were you diagnosed? How long did you have to suffer for with those symptoms before you were eventually diagnosed with
I was
POI?
21 by the time I was diagnosed. So I was about over 5 years before I had a diagnosis.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
How did you cope during that period? Like, how did you feel? Just to explain a little bit.
It was hard because I was 21, about to go get my master's. I was finishing my undergrad, and I just had been facing and having to go to the doctors an extra amount of time for years. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, why did no one know this was POI at the time? I was never told this. And I was also younger too when they first took my blood. And so I wondered if maybe they knew but just told me low estrogen. I don't know. But I never heard the term POI till then, till I was 21. And it was just hard for me because I was still, even though I'm young now, 21 is still young. I just was able to drink in the US. And so um, it was just hard being a college student because my dream has always been to have a family. And that's something I had to come to terms with, like that is infertility. And, um, so I was kind of upset because I'm like, why did it take so long for me to get a diagnosis?
Yeah,
And my mom really helped me, and being with my family has really helped me because at the
I
time I
love
just
that.
felt so alone. And my doctor at Vanderbilt was like, try to find a support group. Well, at that time I never found a support group, so I didn't have anyone that understood, anyone to really talk to besides my family. And that's also when, about a year later, I found the Daisy Network. And so that's how I've become a part of them. And that's really helped me now at 28, is talking and being there for other women. So I've enjoyed like finding your page and everyone
I
else's
love that.
page, meeting like a community. That's really helped me because we all have our own story. And so
I
that's what.
agree. I agree. I feel like the POI community has been such a great community, and it's a great way to meet other women as well, just across the world.
Yeah.
And you get to hear other people's story. You're like, oh wow, I relate to that so much. And you said something about, your doctor said to you, find a support group. Were there much information provided to you regarding what you were actually about your diagnosis to be able to learn more? Did you have an understanding then of what your condition was and how much it would actually affect your mental health and well-being?
So I was given some information. A lot of it I've
Okay.
had to do on my own. My doctor was good and sat down and went over like the main changes, but a lot of like the smart. So I didn't really know about my the effect on like my mental health and some of the other effects that I found just being on hormones and having POI. But she gave me paperwork, and she really sat down and talked to me about, especially my OBGYN too, what POI was. And then I just researched it myself because at the time when I was researching it, even just a few years changes, it was called primary ovarian failure. And then it
Yeah.
changed to insufficiency. And so I was just like, the whole time I'm like, my ovaries failed. And so a lot of it I found myself. They, I know the endocrinologist tried to help me find support groups and gave me ideas, but I just didn't have any luck. And it just took me a little while. And that was why, like, I've enjoyed being with the Daisy Network so much because they were the first group I found anything to do with POI. And it's taken me this many years to find even a bigger community. Like, I didn't realize there's so many people that face it. So
Yeah. It is, it's kind of shocking, when you actually do then find women, you're like, wow, there's so many people out there that actually goes through this. And you've felt so alone for such a long time. In a way, it
yeah,
makes you feel like, oh, okay, you feel much better. Even though you're going through this, you feel like, okay, so there is someone else out there. It's just not me. So I'm glad that you have that kind of community right now, and you actually have such a huge support, like you said, with your family. So it's really important to for me, I think, to have support system around you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how POI has actually affected your mental health? Because
so it's been like in the last few years. So I was by 21, I wasn't didn't feel any issues and like with my mental health and stuff, and it was about like sometime after my diagnosis where I just started, because I had a lot of external other stuff. So I had some family issues, trying to decide what I wanted to do next in life. And that's when I first started facing depression. And my hormones, like dealing with that too. Like I didn't have it before. And I know talking to my doctor, like she was just like, um, with you having taking hormones and your body not having it naturally, she was like, you're going to be spiked for more emotional, like, and so my depression just hit me really hard. So um, it took me a few years to kind of be able to like talk to people about how dark it got, because I never was gonna actively commit suicide, but I had some suicidal thoughts off and on. And that's another way where it's like I'm really close with my mom and she faces the same mental issues as I do. And so she was been there for me for that, because I'm bad about not reaching out.
mm,
So my depression got deep, and then the last 2 years I've had anxiety go up, and it's been like really bad, especially when the pandemic hit. Like I've gotten to where I'm so relied on curbside services now, because just going into places like big crowds, um, little things that just set my anxiety up, and it's just bad. And um, and I've started to where the last few months I'm bad about picking my skin, and
mm,
so I've started to be get into that and found an organization for that to like. So I've started to be told like you got OCD too, and so I've just been trying to make sure I reach out to the right resources and take it a day at a time. Some days are better
yeah,
than others, and it's I don't know, it's a progress, and it helps me. Like I
it
just
is.
started my own little small US support group for Daisy, and I know that one day I was having just a really bad day. I just messaged them and just was like just telling them how I was feeling, and they're like, "You're not alone," and it just made my day to just have someone besides my mom to like reach out to.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I'm just like, it's been a long road for you, and it's never easy. And especially when you talked about having suicidal thoughts, I've been there myself. So I completely relate in a way in terms of that. And how do you feel now? How are you managing yourself? What do you do to take care of yourself? How do you feel in general? Do you feel like um and you feel like you're in a safe space now where you can actually, I know you have community to talk to. Like, do you feel like you're in a much better place compared to where you were before? How is your treatment? How is the community you talk to, you communicate with? How do you feel?
I now, with all that, I feel better. Like I have
It's
my
good.
community, my family. I've had years to kind of come to terms with my diagnosis and figure things out. And
Yeah,
like I have my days where my mental health is not good, and but I've been able to surround myself and know what helps me. Like
good.
and especially since I added in the past year going to nursing school, I've had like a lot of stuff put on my shoulders, and so I've had a lot of I've had to come to terms with adding that to me too, because I want to be there for like everybody, and I can overdo it. And so it's just knowing when I just need to stop and take time for myself and just reach out. And I've created my own little good community of people in my
Yeah,
family that I have, and that's helped me. I do feel better than when I first found out.
that's good. I'm so happy to hear that. I know you also have a blog as well. Do you want to tell people a little bit about your blog? I know you started with your POI story, and now you're talking more about your mental health issues to raise awareness, which I think is so important. So,
Yeah. So a few years ago, I created my blog. It was called a different name. And this past few months, I've changed it because I was sitting there and I'm like, I want to update my blog, do something new, and rebrand it. So I came up with the name Lynn's on the Move because I'm just always moving, always trying to adapt and do something new, and just the life changes. So I came
yeah,
up with that and then rebranded my blog to that. And I started my blog to just kind of do fitness and stuff like that. But I've changed it to where I just want to talk about other issues too. Like it helps me to just sit down and write about my mental health. Like I did a big post for Mental Health Awareness Month, and it just felt good, so good to talk about it. And that's been, I think, one of my most popular posts. And then I did my POI post, and so I want to do more that kind of stuff, not just do fitness. And it's helped me
yeah,
so much. And then I've reached so many other people too, just doing my blog. And so
yes. And it's sharing your story because it's so unique to you as well. Sharing your story, people relate to the like those kind of stuff as well. And I was going to ask you, what are some things that you do to kind of help your mental health? Something that you can share with others out there, maybe it could also help them.
I am trying to get back into exercise. So just going for a walk really helps. I have a dog. So sometimes when I'm just really sad, I'll just go outside and sit down and just, he'll sit beside me like he knows when I'm upset. Um, just spending time with my mom if I'm having a bad day. Um, or doing just a task. So coloring, listening to music, reading, just little stuff like that. Like every
Yeah,
time is something different. Like I like doing a variety of stuff, and it just depends on the day, and it's just finding something that works for you.
yeah, you're right. It depends on your mood as well. Sometimes you don't feel like doing like going for walks or even exercising, and then you have to find alternative way to do
Yeah.
something else to help you. Yeah, I agree. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story because that's been really insightful. And if there's anything else that you would like to add or want to talk about in terms of like, I was going to ask you about your infertility. How is that in terms of that journey? How is that for you? What are some? I know you said we know that with infertility, it's the potential. It becomes more difficult to be able to have your own children without
Mm-hmm.
egg donation. So, do you want to share a little bit more about that for you?
So, um, when I first found out, that hit me hard. But being 21, like even right now at 28, I don't have a husband or a significant other. So it's like I want to have kids and a family, but it's also still not that time in my life to do it. But it's like that's been one of my goals since I was a little kid. Like I want to create a family, have family. And so I remember at one time, about a year after my diagnosis, my mom's like, that was when we were still learning. So my mom was like,
Yeah,
well, ask about freezing your eggs. And when I sat down with my doctor, and she was like, you don't really have viable eggs to freeze. And so it was like, I've had to come to terms and learn more, like, especially doing the Daisy Network and the community. I've learned so many women that's been able to have a kid with IVF and stuff like that. And so it's like when the time comes, I look into that. My doctor knows that I really want to adopt. Adoption's like my number one choice. And it's just coming to terms with that. And then talking with my family about it, knowing that there's a great chance I can't have a kid my own. And so I've come to terms with it because I've always wanted to adopt anyway.
Oh, I
And
love that.
so it was never an issue. I just kind of, when I meet somebody I want to marry, just happen to have that conversation with them. I haven't reached that point yet, so it's just going to be interesting. And everyone just tells me when you find the right guy, they won't mind it. So
Yeah, it's true. I feel like when you meet the right person, like I'm also a single woman, and I've also had to come with terms with adoption is also one of the precious thing that I would love to do as well in the future. And I've also had to come with terms with my infertility issues as well too, knowing that I can't have my own kids. And knowing that if when I meet the right person, making the right decision for yourself, what you actually want for yourself. So then when you meet the right person, then you guys just kind of you mix together and you're able to kind of create that family, either it's through like alternative or through the other alternative way like IVF, adoption, egg donation, whatever it is. So I definitely agree. When you meet the right person, it will feel in a way not so hard.
yeah.
So hopefully, yeah. You just have to be very wishful and prayerful and just like, you leave it to the universe, that's all you can really do. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love the fact that you have such a great supportive system. I am a big advocate for that. It's so important because feeling alone and not really having much support system can be very hard because you can easily get into a dark spot where you feel like it's just you, yourself, no one else. So I love the fact that you have, even apart from the PY community, you also have family and friends as well. That's really amazing because it really does help when they don't understand or you feel like you can't come to them, you have the community to come to. So I like that. So that's why I tell everybody like it's so important to actually find your own community, the people that you relate to, the people that you can be part of, where you can easily reach out to them and talk to them. It's really important. So I love that. Is there anything else you would like to add at all that
Um,
you want to say?
I don't know. I guess while I'm on here, if anyone's watching, that I just want people to know that they're not alone. When you
Yeah.
first hear about the diagnosis, I know you're going to feel sad and be like, why? And just know that I feel like I'm someone that believes things happen for a reason and you'll get through it. And I'm here, and there's a big community out here if you need to reach out
Yes.
to people. So she gave you my blog number. I'm on Instagram. You can find me just to reach out. You're not alone. And I just want
Yeah.
people to know that.
Yeah. I agree. You're so right. It's important to know that you're not alone. There's so many people out there, and we all understand how you feel. And just reach out to somebody. Don't allow this condition to take over you because it can easily can, especially when you have people, especially with like in community where it's like you must have kids to be a woman and this that. When you have so much of that going on and you're not like seeing people who are actually not in a community of people that are actually going through the same thing that you have going on, that understands you, it makes it easier, to be within that community than just being alone with people that don't really understand. And it makes you feel more lonely. So it's so important to actually reach out and just have people around you that you can talk to. So yeah,
Yes.
I'm a big advocate for that. So guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to reach out to Lindsey, I have all our details in the description box. You can check out her blog. She has a blog, and you can also follow her on Instagram and reach out if you need to talk to her. And just remember that everyone is here for you. And I'm so glad that you came on to share your story with us. I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much, Lindsey. If
Thank
anybody have any if anybody have any questions for us, let me just check before we exit out. I don't think there is any questions for now. Let me see. No, so there is no questions now. So we're just gonna end the live now. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.